And I'm going to immediately turn it over to our chairman of the organization, who will be hosting our news conference today, and that is Erwin Podhazer. And he is our chairman from the big state of Florida. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Good morning. Recently, the Coalition for Free TV and Broadband was formed, and it was formed around some very simple but profound beliefs and goals. We believe that the continued success of free over-the-air television is vital for our nation. We believe that community television, especially low-power television stations and translators, are a key component of the broadcast industry as a whole. And we believe that existing over-the-air television infrastructure can provide new products, services, and choices for the public, for the American people. In just a short period of time, the coalition has grown to over 400 members, and it has also grown to over 100 companies. Members include community broadcasters, minority broadcasters, foreign language broadcasters, religious broadcasters, television networks, production companies, television equipment manufacturers, and simply just concerned citizens. We've also had the privilege of building strategic partnerships with organizations such as the National Translator Association, and with us today is the president of the NTA, Byron. Just raise your hand right there. Dr. Byron St. Clair not only is the president of the NTA, which represents over 2,000 translator stations throughout the country that would be devastated in a spectrum auction, he is also, many consider him the father of low-power television. And so thank you, Byron, for being with us. Also joining me on stage right now is our faith-based director for the coalition. He is the host of Crosstalk International and a board member of the National Religious Broadcasters, Dr. Randy Weiss.
Thank you. I am really delighted to be able to announce that the entire TV committee of the National Religious Broadcasters Association wholeheartedly and unanimously supports this plan. And I also want you to know that we wholeheartedly oppose the confiscation or shutdown of any TV station in this country. Did you hear about the guy the other day that got the enormous cell phone bill? You know your cell phone bill is too high when the wireless companies have enough money that they can convince the Republicans to confiscate small businesses, shut down church television stations, and they can convince the Democrats to fry Kermit's frog legs in rural America. Something's wrong. Did you know that, do you know what LPTV and translator stations are? I'm a Christian LPTV broadcaster. Did you know that over 2,000 stations will be shuttered if the spectrum auction goes through the way it's proposed? Did you know that Detroit may go dark from free television? If these things happen, it's going to make Occupy Wall Street look like Sesame Street. There are unintended consequences for rushing to judgment to fix manufactured crises. Please don't allow 2,000 stations, maybe 4,000 stations, to be destroyed. Congress should not be permitted to raid this industry to enrich wireless giants. I visited many congressional offices just seeking a little protection. I was shocked that many assumed protection was in their bills, but they were unaware that there is no protection for LPTV or translator stations. One of them said, confiscation, don't use that word. I said, what would you call it? He thought of it more as a sacrifice for the greater good. Well, Should Congress rob community broadcasters on Main Street to bail out the communication giants on Wall Street? I don't think so. I hope that as a result of this press conference, there will be some people asking the right questions to the right people in the right places so that there will be protection for all broadcasters, not just giant broadcasters. Does anyone care about the little guy anymore? Is it right to strip small businesses of their future through redistribution of our legally licensed TV spectrums? If Congress fails to include protection for every LPTV and translator station, it could result in the largest government confiscation of our lifetime. Now, I'm a Christian broadcaster because Jesus changed my life. I want to bring hope and encouragement to troubled families and communities that are struggling. I still believe in one nation under God, and I still believe America needs the hope and encouragement that his message delivers. But beyond that, I'm the canary in the coal mine. If Congress is allowed to silence my voice to pay their bills, what makes you think you will continue to have your voices? Thank you.
Dr. Weiss represents hundreds, thousands of small churches, small businesses, communities that run these types of stations. Lots of voices are going to go silent unless something is done. And the wireless companies have said it's okay to make them silent because the federal government needs money and we need better broadband. That's what the wireless company says. So the broadcasters are here today to say, okay, we can give the federal government revenue and we can give you broadband, better broadband. And to talk more about that plan is the Vice President of Advanced Technologies for Sinclair Broadcast Group, Mark Aiken.
Thank you. You can tell that that Randy's married to an Italian woman because of all of the hand action up here. I've got to get this restarted, but that's all right, Randy. It's all right. Okay. So just a little bit of background. I know many of you in this audience, but some of you don't know me. I've been in broadcasting for 35 years. And in my most recent post of duty at Sinclair Broadcast Group, I've been involved in the transition of Sinclair to high-definition television. And I've been actively engaged in ATSC to ensure that that broadcasters have the most viable standard to do all that can be done with broadcasting as a technology. In the last 4 years, I have been the chairman of the mobile standardization activity. And out of that work as chairman, in seeking a better and brighter future for broadcasters, I've focused on exactly broadcasting as the first primary mass media marketing operation in the United States. 50 years ago, broadcasting was the first wireless provider, and we intend on fulfilling that role today. Many of you, think of television and you're not really sure how it gets to you, and for a lot of you, it may be brought into your home via cable, via satellite, via other means. But at the center of that activity is a local broadcast station that's licensed to an area, and in many parts of the country, as Randy spoke of, there are communities very, very, very distant from the core of a city that are served by low-power transmitters and translators. For example, our CBS station, KUTV, in Salt Lake City, serves almost 200 distinctly different communities through a network of 200 translators. And so when we're looking about direct and material impact of any plan that does not accommodate the needs of serving those communities, we believe there's a problem. So today you've got a typically single large tower providing service to the primary DMA. We believe that in the mobile environment, saturation of signal becomes extremely important. And so don't think of the future of television as cellular. Think of it as distributed. There's a very large difference between the two. But it's definitely a need to provide a higher quality of service. The cellular industry depends upon a mass network of hundreds of low power, very low power, and microcells and picocells providing a layered service. I saw a figure the other day. San Diego County has 1,600 towers associated with providing wireless services. That is a cellular network. What the last year of my work has been engaged in, what are the opportunities to meld broadcast and the unique capabilities of broadcast as one-to-many, as point-to-multipoint, and use a layered approach to providing the quantity, the huge mass, the surge in consumer consumption of video. And I've come to the conclusion that only by providing a platform that uses the distinctly best qualities of two distinctly different networks and putting them together collaboratively in conjunction with one another, that is the only way that we are going to solve the current problem. And more importantly, if we adopt a policy of trying to assign spectrum in a unicast environment to meet the needs, to fulfill the appetite, to consume the large quantity of bits we have today, there is not enough spectrum in the universe to do so. You know, you could start with Genesis and say in the beginning, you know, God created all things, but apparently he didn't create enough spectrum. So the second thing he invented was broadcasting. So if you layer on top of broadcasting, unicasting, and provide a base layer that ties those uniquely different infrastructures together, you have the basis of meeting the individual one-to-one unicast needs, ideally suited to the existing and the future envisioned LTE networks of the wireless industry. And if broadcasters, starting with a large tower, begin to fill in their coverage areas with medium power transmitters to provide densification, to provide penetration into buildings, the UHF band is the band to do that. The wireless guys know that. There's no question that they know that. That's why they covet our spectrum. Tomorrow, I will be giving a presentation at the IEEE Broadcast Technology Society. If you want the minutia details of how this is possible, you'll actually have to attend two papers. The first paper will deal with the physical layer, sort of the physical attributes of a new delivery component for broadcasting. It is tied, by the way, this activity for me started, as I said, about a year ago. ATSC yesterday released a report on its next generation broadcast television activity. I presented a paper in February that was the genesis of this idea of a broadcast overlay. So I invite you, if you're technical, attend it. If you've got technical people around you, a copy of that paper will be available at the Free TV Coalition website. And if you're really adventurous, next week I'll be in Hollywood for my film debut, giving the second piece of the puzzle, which deals with the radio access network that ties the physical broadcast structure to an LTE environment. The outcome of all of this, I think, what you're going to hear from Rajiv is sort of the thesis that drove the economic modeling. Now, the economic modeling has focused on the revenue side of the equation. We know that there's much more to economics than revenues. all you got to read is the latest FCC Spec-It piece, and we can apply multipliers of hundreds to revenues in terms of new jobs, in terms of new opportunities for the consumer electronics world. We're talking about wireless. So all of the opportunities that exist in other wireless sectors get expanded by allowing broadcasters this capability. Improved quality of service. I'm not going to go through these because they are sort of the core hypotheses that drove the economic modeling. And with that, we'll entertain questions later, but I'd like to introduce Rajiv Hazari. Rajiv, I'll let him tell you 30 seconds, limit it to 30 seconds of your background, but walk people through the process of how the economic analysis progressed and some of the results of those. You've got a summary, effectively the executive summary of a 30-some-odd page report that'll be finished within a week, and once again, that too will be available in the Coalition's website. So I'd ask that in the coming week you just, put that as one of your favorite links, maybe your startup link, and check in daily. So, Rajiv.
Thank you, Mark, and good morning, everyone. Let me briefly give you my background. And I have been involved with television world internationally for more than 25 years. And I've been doing broadband related work for very large companies like EchoStar and very smart startups in 4G area as well. So essentially, the expertise that I bring to the table relates to evaluation of different telecommunication technologies relating to broadband. The idea of broadcast being more optimal, more efficient way of carrying point to multi-point traffic is being discussed for a long time. And intuitively, everybody understands it. Intuitively, everyone understands that if there is a message that I need to send to each one of you, if I do it in unicast mode, if I do it in one-to-one mode, then there's so many streams that I'm going to send out. Whereas in broadcast mode, I just send out one stream, and it gets to you, every one of you, each one in this room. So intuitively, everyone understands that there are different types of traffic. There is a traffic which is one-to-one, point-to-point traffic, and there's also point-to-multi-point traffic. Real-time television is point-to-multipoint, a typical example of a point-to-multipoint traffic. And it is better that it is transmitted in a broadcast transport and not a one-to-one unicast transport. So when broadcasters started, with this idea of broadband broadcast overlay model, and what's the value to the economy? What's the value that it will bring to the Treasury? We thought we could do some economic modeling based on how the IP traffic flows. So, everyone knows that, there is a need for spectrum. Everyone knows that, the communication needs of every person is growing rapidly. I mean, you're consuming more bits every month than you were 10 years back, and you're going to, consume more 10 years now, hence. What does that mean? So we essentially said, what's the current scenario, and what are the options that are on the table today in terms of auction and letting wireless industry use it, and what would be the value if the broadcast overlay is put in place? The most important part of this analysis is we need to understand that there are different types of traffics. I mean, if everyone understands it intuitively. We need to sort of understand that not all. A lot of times I've heard that real-time TV is dead. People say, oh, nobody wants to watch TV real-time. Everybody wants to watch time-shifted. I don't believe that data doesn't support it. Nielsen has come up with a report which says that even today, overwhelming part of our time in a fixed environment at home, we still even today watch real-time TV. Maybe it is recorded on DVR, and that is an example of point to multi-point traffic. That's the type of traffic that is best carried on point to multi-point traffic. Also, there is enough evidence to know that we try to replicate what we do at home, what we do in fixed environment, we try to replicate in the mobile environment. So given a choice, you would definitely do exactly what you do at home. You would do if you have some spare time on the road, if you're going in a train. So if there is a technology that can bring you in a broadcast mode a real-time TV, surely there are a lot of people who would want to watch a local event or a football game or whatever. So there are different types. This slide essentially tells you that there are different types of traffic, different type of data, voice, and video traffic, and some are point to multi-point, some are point to point. And typically, the wireless technology which is a unicast technology, is good at carrying point-to-point traffic and not point-to-multi-point traffic. This is how we went about. We looked at what's the usage trend, what everybody knows. Again, this is a matter of common knowledge that IP traffic is exploding, and it is growing at almost supernormal rates every year. So what's the traffic? What are the components? What are the segments of the traffic, and how much is potentially a point to multi-point traffic? How much is point to point traffic? And so from that scenario, if you take broadcast overlay technology, how much of that point to multi-point traffic can be met by using broadcast overlay? And what kind of revenue can we bring in? And that would be the ancillary revenue. What would be the treasury share of that revenue that we can potentially evaluate and work out a present value of that if you look at 15 years time frame. These are some of the charts, and again, a lot of this you all know intuitively that, and you must have read it several places. Mobile IP traffic is growing and growing extremely rapidly. It is growing at geometric scale, and a lion's share of it is video. And think about it. At home, when you watch video, you definitely are watching more of Netflix today, but you not stop watching real-time TV. You not stop watching DVR content, and DVR is again sent by broadcasters, and in a broadcast mode, best sent by broadcast mode. Let me put it this way, and recorded for your later viewing. So it is a traffic that is good for point to multi-point traffic for transport. So increasing portion of this mobile traffic will be point to multi-point. If the environment is right, if the ecosystem is right, if broadcast overlay technology is rolled out in a collaborative environment, then we have no doubt that point to multi-point IP traffic would be a significant portion of the overall video traffic. We are assuming we've sort of been conservative. We've erred on conservative side, and we've said that it will not be rolled out right away. It would be available for a rollout, but rollout would take time. And for working out any value to the treasury, any revenue, we've assumed a gradual rollout of broadcast technology. Also, what you see here, we've said unicast equivalent point to point. What we've said is that just for apples to apples comparison, whatever bandwidth is created, we've taken only that portion of bandwidth that you would otherwise have consumed if broadcast overlay was not available. In a sense, you would have consumed it in a unicast mode. Only that bandwidth is considered for these projections. One thing that we've assumed, point to multipoint, as you know, is way more efficient way of, broadcast is a way more efficient way of doing point to multipoint traffic. It is therefore, again, as I mentioned initially, instead of creating multiple streams, I'm creating one stream. I'm replacing so many streams with just one stream of data. And that will make the bandwidth much cheaper in terms of cost per bit for the point-to-multipoint traffic. And we've assumed that there would be a significant drop in capacity prices, which would be ultimately good for the consumer. And that, it's anyone's guess how much that drop would be, but for the sake of analysis, we have assumed that it would drop by as much as 75% the moment a broadcast overlay is laid out. Again, would the drop be overnight? Probably not, but for being conservative, we have assumed that it will drop 75% for point-to-multipoint traffic right on the day when we introduce broadcast overlay, and we've not waited it for the gradual rollout. So how much would be the ancillary revenue, and what would be the treasury annuity? And the revenue, if we take, so now we have looked at demand, we have looked at supply, and what would be the price point. And that will give us what kind of revenue can one expect from this point-to-multipoint traffic that is carried by broadcast overlay. And 5% of this ancillary revenue would be the revenue contribution, the treasury contribution that we would give. We ran several scenarios, and and there are many variables I can understand. One of the variables is how much would the price drop. I mean, if the price drops just by 50%, these numbers would be probably twice as much. We feel that with a very conservative assumption set, the 15-year time frame, 15 years from today, and 13 years from the launch, the Treasury should be able to get in terms of present value, $62 billion, but this is not going to stop. The other number, the bigger number that you're seeing here, is it's not that after 15 years broadcast overlay is going to disappear. There's going to be revenue beyond 15 years, and if you take the value of that revenue that would be to perpetuity, it would be close to $200 in present value terms. So within 15 years, it is $62 billion, and beyond 15 years, value would be $216 billion. I'd be happy to take any questions, of course, or whatever, and if any more information is required about what we do, you can visit us on tmevaluations.com and get some background about what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Raju. There's a choice out there, and the choice is pretty simple at this point. On one hand, you have a plan that right now could destroy thousands of television stations, cause small businesses, churches, minority groups to lose their stations, go off the air, and will only raise $6 billion net to the Treasury, according to the CBO. On the other hand, you have a broadcaster's plan that will allow these stations to continue to exist, continue to offer free television to their communities, and raise, conservatively, as Rajiv said, over time, over $200 billion for the federal revenue, and it would continue to go up and up and up. We believe that destroying these stations just simply is wrong. It is un-American to do something like this. It is immoral, and what's more, now we know it doesn't make economic sense to destroy these stations. Congress needs to take a serious look at what they're about to do and take a serious look at this plan and the details, like it was said, the 30-page details and the economics and everything are going to be available to anyone who wants to see them. I know if you signed in, we have your email, and we'll make sure that you know when it's up on the web. And I do believe we do have some time to take a couple of questions, and then afterwards, everyone who spoke today will be available. If Mark, could you come up to the front? And yes.
How do you spell your name? It's spelled two different ways on the press release.
Oh, sorry about that. My own mom doesn't know how to spell my name. It's Podhajer. Sorry, that was it was a typo on the press release. Sorry about that.
Also,
Yes.
the press release announcing this announced $25 billion through the auctions and $126 billion through your plan. And Rajiv, you talked about the press release talks now about less than $20 billion and more than $216 billion.
Well, I'll explain the first one. The first one is they're talking about we've heard $15 billion to $30 billion from different people in the government. The $6 billion is the net. CBO that scored it said that after you pay everything that you have to pay, the U.S. Treasury is going to get $6 billion after wiping out 2,000 stations.
There's all kinds of numbers out there. I mean, you've got ranges all the way up to $30 billion. And the net numbers, obviously, in those projections include some level of revenues flowing back to broadcasters because of this repacking and moving folks out of their existing spectrum in a large part of the country. As well, you've got a national safety emergency services network that is projected to come out of those as well. So you've got a net CBO scoring of $6 billion. You've got, in my eyes, my math says it's probably about 18 billion net if broadcasters take on a self-funding of this evolution of broadcasting. So I feel very strongly, having gone through this last transition, that one of the problems that we had is that there was a government push and there was no consumer pull, and we're trying to reverse that equation. We have an opportunity to use an immense consumer pull to drive economics through the broadcast infrastructure. And clearly, there's the wireless industry is not going away. The broadcast industry is not going away. It's a question of how do we tie those two uniquely different technical capabilities together seamlessly in a way that provides a better service, a more reliable service, and a more cost-effective service to consumers. There's lots of ways, to slice the pie. I'd raise my hand and say, well, if the wireless guys have got 500 megahertz and they're only using less than 200, wouldn't it be nice if they used the other 300? But again, there are capital markets that are at work here. It's much easier for a wireless guy to do a one-time here's $25 billion. Leave me alone for the rest of eternity and let me pocket the cash. Or broadcasters are saying, continue to license us, let's take a use it or lose it approach. We can generate the revenue, and we're willing to bring that revenue back to the Treasury as a responsible part of our two-way, licensing relationship with the government, and most importantly, the services that are provided by local television. Like I said, this is about, free TV is one thing, mobile TV is one thing. At the end of the day, this is about local television. Because if local television goes away, it doesn't matter if you get your channels via cable, via fiber, via satellite, or via over the air. If the local station goes away, you lose local television. You lose news. You lose traffic, weather, community events. Everything that's associated with local broadcasters goes away.
Yeah. And I do just want to answer one part of your question to clarify. The 62 billion and the 200 billion. The reason why you're seeing that is because we've decided to go with worst case scenario as our number rather than giving the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, we destroy the revenue that's going to come in through an auction. We triple it in the short term, and then it goes up from there. So that's why you saw those numbers.
Yeah. What has to happen on a regulatory or legislative front in order for this to happen?
Well, my attorney's got a whole arm's length list of regulatory
and what are the chances
reform.
of getting that? Yeah.
Well, what are the chances? What are the chances that broadcasters could provide these services? They're very good. Listen, Congress gets swayed, hopefully, by the American public, and what we're bringing to the American public is an alternative to the disintegration of local television.
So, in other words, the FCC can't do anything. This has to come from the Congress.
Well, the FCC acts acts under the direction of Congress.
Right.
Now, the FCC can make recommendations, can determine policy that best fit that, but at the end of the day, Congress drives the FCC. I believe there's some very simple things that need to happen. Number one, we need a change in the standard. And if I were king of the hill for a day, I would bring the wireless guys to the table, and we would sit down and we would make this thing work between the two industries, because this is bigger than broadcasting, and this is bigger than the wireless industry. This is about all of the wireless industry, which is inclusive of every proponent in this room. You need to change the standard. Some of that activity is underway, as I referenced. ATSC has got its 3.0 activity. They issued their report to the board yesterday that went through a laundry list of opportunities that exist for the next standard. I think just as importantly, you have a global engagement on this. By the way, this isn't just a problem unique to the U.S. It's more heightened in the U.S. But globally, these are global issues. So there's been the organizing of a global summit of broadcasters. It's going to take place in November in Shanghai, and your DVB, ATSC, X3, I mean, you name the alphabet soup of organizations that are involved in broadcasting. They're going to convene because there needs to be a level of harmonization. There needs to be harmonization because there needs to be a roadmap of evolution. This isn't just, we've got to stop this idea of we're going to do one thing, and we're going to do one thing only, and then we're going to chop it off and then do something different. There needs to be a way to evolve these standards.
Can you explain this a little more in English? Like if I'm a consumer, right, and all of a sudden, a low-power TV station is going to be providing me with some wireless service. You're talking about changing a broadcast standard. As a consumer, what does that mean? I mean, I remember with the transition to digital, I needed a box. Okay.
It should be invisible to you, right? One of the reasons, another reason that the digital transition was staggered the way it did was it didn't optimally put the consumer in the middle of what's the requirement of the standard.
Can I quickly answer that? TV can make your iPhone work better. That's what TV can make your iPhone work.
I think the short answer to what is the effect on the consumer is you don't hit data usage caps on your cell phone, so you don't go over 2 gigabytes and start paying $10 a gigabyte. And the quality of the video that you receive is much higher quality, so it's not all pixelated, it doesn't lock up.
It needs to address the tablet market.
The overall cost for a consumer will have to come down, because at this point in time, you have been fed all kind of traffic in just one way. There's just one road. That's not optimal way of getting the data to. So you are paying for that.
Do phones exist now? I'm just trying to understand. Do I have to buy a new phone? Do I have to buy a modem in my home?
No, I mean, look at this. Part of, and by the way, this is just my vision. I'm not king of the hill, and a lot smarter folks than me need to come together at the table. But the premise is that if you base the evolution on LTE Advanced and where that's going, which has got a long roadmap over the next decade, and you harmonize around LTE, particularly for your mobile services, and many of your direct-to-home services as well. You harmonize on that, then the next phone that you buy, which is still an LTE phone, has got a new extension to the standard that deals with these little cells, right? I mean, the little cells are different than the big cells. So there's some technical changes. I'm going to detail what those extensions should be, and we've already begun the discussion with 3GPP, and try to begin kicking that ball down the field. But I'll also tell you this: as long as the wireless guys think that they can get our spectrum, there's little interest on extending those standards to accomplish these goals.
Yeah, I know we have to take a couple of more questions. We have one here, and then I will get right to you. And then, people, if you have other questions, everyone's going to be available for you right after. But I know you've been trying very hard to get a question in.
So bring this down to a more elementary level. To those of us who don't cover broadcasting every single day, so how exactly would you? So the idea is that broadcasters would somehow carry traffic that many people are getting on their iPhones. Is that the idea?
That's correct.
Okay, and how? So you would obviously have to coordinate with the wireless carriers. Am I correct on this?
Well, you would have a radio.
Yeah,
you have
who's all watching the same YouTube video, right? Is this what we're talking about?
Broadcasters have content. The wireless providers have content that gets pushed through a box, through a gateway, and it makes a decision. Is this going from me to you, or is this going from me to everybody in the room? And if it's going me to you, it goes across the cellular network. It's unicast. And if it's from me to everyone in this room, it goes across the broadcast overlay, and everybody in this room sees it. So there's a huge amount of intelligence in these systems. 95% of this is in place today, literally in place today. So we're not looking for a miracle here.
All right,
Okay.
one follow-up, just quickly. Have you presented this plan on Capitol Hill? I mean, right now
Yes.
they're talking, and what kind of reaction are you getting? And is it to the key people that are making the decisions right now?
We have sent the basic part of the plan to the subcommittee on energy and commerce. We're sending it to members of that committee. We're sending it to members of the super committee as well. And we're starting to get some feedback. Some is positive. Some people are just gung-ho, auctions only way. They have blinders on. I am not going to guess why they have those blinders on.
Well, they've said why. They want to score against the debt. Yeah. So the only way you score against the debt is you take a one-time cash payment and say, okay, I scored against the debt. But the problem is that this $25 billion, pick your number, that they lay down once.
That's it.
All
it's
future
over.
revenue disappears, and there's literally an ignoring of that in this debt reconciliation problem that we have right now.
And if they get the auction wrong, once that's gone, once that spectrum's gone, it's gone. And if this turns out to be the better solution, once you've taken that spectrum away from broadcasters can't get it back, and they're not going to be able to put this plan into action the way it could. And I know you've been trying to get a question, and then you will be our last question.
Under your plan, there would not be incentive auction. Broadcasters who might want to give up their spectrum would get compensation. Full power broadcasters wouldn't be able to do that. So what's the reaction from the National Association of Broadcasters to your plan?
We've presented the plan to the NAB. We've had positive feedback, and I would say talk to the NAB. They will give you, I'm sure, more than one comment on it. And no, and I'm not at all afraid what that comment is, but I'll let them speak for themselves.
And we are going to have to make this the last question, and a quick answer also to is I can make maybe $1 million by selling out, or I can stay in business and make $5 million and make my station better and serve the community. I think maybe a lot of other people would change their mind about wanting to be in the auction.
By the way, if there's a high-powered station for sale, let me know, because we're buying.
Yeah. And you are our last question, and then we will allow questions informally
Do you
around
have an
things.
estimate of the capital expenditures that will be required for this plan over the life of, this 2016?
We're working on that right now. I mean, we have focused on the revenue side. The question is does it make sense to move forward with this plan? I mean, I've been in broadcasting on the equipment side of the business for 3+ decades. My back of the napkin scoring on this is that over a period of 10 years, the broadcast industry would probably invest on the order of $5 billion to build out this additional capability. They could start tomorrow, virtually start tomorrow, by converting to the proper standard. That standard doesn't exist today, by the way, because there are lots of standards you could point to that are close, but we need to go through that standard setting process. But with some fundamental changes in equipment, they could be doing part of this virtually tomorrow. But to get the most efficient use of the spectrum is going to require coordination as an industry. And once again, the wireless folks need to be at the table, because this can't be a one-side solution. We need to put the consumer first, we need to put the American public first, and we need to say, how do we provide a better experience overall for those that are receiving broadcast content and those that are receiving unicast, smartphone content.
Okay, we want to thank all of you for coming. Again, everyone will be available for questions. Thank you.